Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let the people join because they got the information now, so they'll be joining. Meanwhile, I would start because yesterday he completed this theory of comparative advantage. Today, we'll be starting this refinements of it because, as I was telling you, that the theory of comparative advantage would not finish when we do only the basic portion of it. Okay, so we have here the multiple assumptions, which were unrealistic, and we discussed those yesterday. We cannot even consider, the constant returns to scale. There is always, the occurrence of, either increasing returns to scale or diminishing returns to the scale. So the possibility of these things are also there. So that's why, the existence of perfect competition and also the assumptions which are associated with this perfect competition are unrealistic in the nature. And then we also started this transportation cost is zero, which is also not possible because the perfect competition assumes this transportation cost is zero. Without, involving this transportation cost into the analysis, we cannot even participate in international trade. So that is one of the aspects which has to be discussed. Then the most important one, as an assumption of classical theory and this Ricardian theory, we have seen that even Adam Smith also, they are following barter system into the analysis, and they do evaluate the gains of trade only in terms of barter system, and then only this offer curve and everything, you assess on the basis of this barter system. But the refinements is also talking about when this Ricardian theory is also being used with the monetary aspect. So it means we will see the role of money in the theory of comparative advantage. Also, there was an unrealistic assumption of the, only the existence of two countries and two goods and two there's factors. So not, sorry, two factors, only one factor. So here factors, definitely refinement is not talking about. As I was mentioning earlier, when we discussed the theory of opportunity cost, the Professor Havelock was the one and first who has given, the concept of two factor of production. But yes, this refinement is also explaining about the existence of many countries and many goods model. So these are the various refinements we will be studying. So here today I'll be taking the first one, that is the role of money in the theory of comparative advantage. So for that I'll be going on the lecture. I think people are still joining. Let's wait for 1 more minute and then I'll go on the presentation. Okay, let's proceed. Fine. So refinements of comparative advantage theory. So here we'll be studying the first one, that is the role of money in the theory of comparative advantage. So let's take the Professor Tozing's analysis in this case, and he followed the few assumptions. Let me see, someone is requesting. Okay. So we'll be following here the few assumptions. The one we have two countries here. So Professor Tozing is not shuffling, the existence of a two countries, not going for more than two countries. So he's taking here, let's say, America and Germany, and two commodities he's taking, that is wheat and linen. So we are not even, changing a factor of production, the assumption of the factors. We have only the one, that is labor. Given level of money wages in two countries in a common currency. See, because now we are adding money component in our refinements. So, okay. So money component is there. So we need to take, for simplicity, they have taken here that is a common currency, which is a dollar over here. So the daily wage in America, that is dollar 1.5, and in Germany, that is dollar 1. So definitely they have a difference in the wages, and this is just because, as already it was mentioned in the assumption of the Ricardian model, also like country to country, this labor cost may be a difference, and this is because of based on the other factors of the economy. So here that has been assessed with the different monetary wages in this way. And there are the absolute differences in money prices between the two countries that has been considered. And the major assumption is what? There is equilibrium in the balance of payments between two countries. See, this is the major assumption. If we do follow that the BOP account, see, that was, if we do consider there is the existence of balance of payment account. So we are exactly now talking about the three major accounts, what we do discuss in case of balance of payment. So, but in other way, of course, like there is a current account and the existence of capital account, but this capital account adding the gold instead of the capital, so gold will flow from the deficit to the surplus country, and thereby changing prices and money incomes in both countries until equilibrium is restored. Okay, so we are considering here what? We are considering the balance of payment equilibrium position based on the gold flow. So what we do consider by today, that is a capital inflow and the outflow. So that time it was a gold flow. So gold will flow from deficit to the surplus country. It means the country who is facing balance of payment deficit, they will face the capital outflow. Okay, like gold outflow. So it's a gold outflow to surplus country. And then automatic adjustments would be done in the prices and the money income in both of the countries. So finally, equilibrium will again get restored. So that is an assumption by this Professor Taussig, and that is giving, in addition, some refinements to this Ricardian base theory. So first of all, here the what is important, we are adding here the money aspect in the Ricardian theory. Then we are also considering here the monetary wages, indicating as that this is showing a differences in the labor cost. And as it was shown in case of skills of whether I say labor hours. Okay, so we were differentiating it with the number of labor hours which were required in the cases of basic theory. So here you are assessing it with the monetary wages, and then the major assumption is balance of payment equilibria, which is actually we have to follow when we do start trading with each other. So let's see how their opportunity cost will be evaluated when there is the existence of money between two of the countries in the international trade. So see, this is the model. We have two countries, America and Germany. The daily wages are put in this table in dollars. So in America, we have dollar 1.5. We have a two goods, wheat and linen. So what is our, the production possibility, America's production possibility? Dollar 1.5 is the wage. Wait. Okay. Okay. So dollar 1.5 is the daily wage in the America. Okay. And for 10 days labor, total wages would be 1.5 multiplied by 10. This gives you 50. So it's a dollar 50. Fine. So for 10 days, if you will be hiring them, so you have to pay them dollar 50. Then total output of 10 days labor, it is 20 units of wheat. So that is the production possibility. For daily wages, they are paying to one labor, that is dollar 1.54. They are requiring to produce this 20 units of wheat, that is a 10 days labor. So that's a 1.5 multiplied by 10. So this is $15. So this they require. Okay. So that is the total output of 10 days labor, and this is the total wages for the 10 days labor. And then you have to calculate this money cost or a price per unit of output in dollar. This is nothing. This is your opportunity cost. Okay. So the opportunity cost, how you would calculate, this is total wages divided by the total output. So 15 by 20, this is giving you 0.75, as a opportunity cost of America to produce 20 units of wheat within 10 days of labor. Okay, so you require 0.75 as a monetary term, that is an opportunity cost. So basically, this is coming out from these daily wages, this you are paying, and from that, you are exactly calculating what this is an opportunity cost. Then, coming up to this here for the commodity of linen. So, dollar 1.5, it's a daily wage, it is same, and you require again, the 10 days of labor to produce this. Again, 20 units of linen. So this is what again $15 you need to pay for the 20 units of linen. See here, this 20 units of linen here, 20 units of linen here, that is definitely more than that, these two. So this is also indicating that America has, clear-cut absolute advantage in the production of gold. But because of Ricardian theory, as we know that the opportunity cost would allow you to, choose in a specialization and you can participate in international trade for the better gains. So this is also showing the same possibilities and also the same opportunity cost. So for America, they have a similar production possibilities and also the opportunity cost in the production of wheat and the linen. Now, what happens in the Germany? For Germany, the daily wages, what they are paying, that is $1 in both cases, okay? And they require 10 days of labor. Let me see, somebody is requesting. Okay, so in Germany, they are paying what $1, fine. So total wages for the 10 days labor, that is $10 itself. So they are paying same, okay, and they require again 10 days of a labor in both ways, but the cost would definitely, whatever they are producing, that is different. Here they are producing 10 units of wheat, and here within 10 days of labor, they are producing 15 units of linen. So 10 divided by 10, this is giving you the opportunity cost, this is equals to 1. And here it is giving 10 divided by 15, that is 0.66. Now, first of all, because we got to know their opportunity costs for both of the countries, America and Germany. So, which of the particular commodity they'll be opting first? Now, see, first we'll compare between the units of wheat and also this units of wheat here in the Germany. So, what opportunity cost is occurring in case of America? That is 0.75, and in case of Germany, that is 1. Okay, so 1 will be compared with the 0.75. So what is the outcome basically? The 1 is definitely greater than 0.75. So Germany has to drop this wheat in the production or their specialization. Or what this America will do, they'll opt the 0.75 because the relative analysis says that the between the countries, okay, the relative analysis between the countries says that America has more specialization or the comparative advantage in the production of wheat. Okay, so that is the relative analysis. Now, in Germany, what does Germany has to do? So here we have 15 units of linen can be produced with 0.66 cost, whereas we have here the 20 units of linen with 0.75. See, this is the per unit analysis. Okay, so 0.75 you require to produce 1 unit of it. Though we are talking about the total 20 units here and the 15 units here. So the 1 unit, if this America would produce of this linen, they would be requiring 0.75 cost. Whereas in Germany, they do need only 0.66. So per unit analysis says that 0.66 is the lower cost than 0.75. So what does Germany has to do? The Germany has to opt this linen for their a complete specialization and for least comparative cost what we would say that is coming in the production of linen. So that's why Germany has to opt this linen as their commodity of comparative advantage. So see here, as the clear cut, the differences we could see in case of absolute advantage with reference to America over the Germany. But opportunity cost has changed the entire picture. The Professor Tozing says if there is a role of money and you can calculate even this opportunity cost with this, the monetary wages too. And then you can analyze, yes, still Germany has, the lower cost in the production of linen. So America has no option, to produce or to continue this production. So America would leave it and they'll participate in international trade at the lower prices. They can exchange this wheat to wheat with this linen. Okay. Now, story doesn't end here. The reason because what assumptions we have studied here, the important assumption is there is equilibrium in the balance of payment between the two countries. Okay, and we do assume that the gold is the your capital account. Okay, so our current account would be dealt with this exports and imports between these two countries. Fine. But how Professor Tosing is actually, talking about a path of divergence in this situation. It means America and Germany, when they do start the international trade, we assume that both of the countries are following BOP equilibria. Okay, so they have, no fluctuations in the monetary wages and the prices in the economy. So it means dollar 1.5 would remain the same as, in the America for longer period, and similarly in Germany also they'll be paying dollar one. So unless these wages are being fluctuated, this will go like this. It means everything is dependent on what you are paying, because it is our assumption that dollar 1.5 is the daily wage of America and Germany says they are paying that is dollar 1. So unless this is changing, everything will go like this. So our opportunity cost would allow this way of international trade and they would be gaining also out of this. But Professor Tosing says that to maintain the whole thing, they'll follow, the upper limit and a lower limit in that case. What is that upper limit and a lower limit? See, once you are, adding this monetary wages and the prices into this, then you are exactly talking about the exchange rates. Fine. So to maintain exchange rates and everything, what you need, first of all, because you're exchanging your goods to the other country. Fine. So what we do in the present time, we have a two fundamentals to monitoring our exchange rate, that is a fixed exchange rate and the flexible exchange rate. Fine. The flexible exchange rate says that the government is keeping the free this to float in the economy, so automatic adjustments will make it again restore the entire equilibrium. But whenever we do talk about, the government interventions, though this model is not talking about any government intervention because they are focusing on the laissez-faire in the capitalist economy. But still, because when the Professor Tosing is giving an amendment to it, so whenever there is the monetary wages and two countries are participating with each other, they do mutually follow this upper limit and a lower limit in the whole transaction. Now, what is this upper limit and a lower limit in layman language, or a more technical way we can say that we do follow today? That is pegging of our currency under the fixed exchange rate. Okay, so our monetary system does also follow. So whenever we do not want to, allow the fluctuations uh, in a particular limit, if you only allow, like I would remind you here the Bretton Woods system, what we started in the last semester. The Bretton Woods system, there was one concept, that is the snake in the tunnel. Okay, so that is indicating what you are not allowing, freely float this exchange rate over and above that tunnel. Fine. So it means if there would be a more changes to the exchange rate, then you will further control it. And how you would control it by today? With your interventions of central bank, with an open market operations. So that we do today. But that time it was not present because the government interference they are not talking about. They're just saying that the two of the countries, whenever they will participate at the initial stage, they will be following BOP equilibria. And once they are participating in that, it means there would be some fluctuations. And to control those fluctuations, they would be following some bagging of this, the exchange. And this exchange is based on this monetary wages. So they are following upper limit and a lower limit. Now, how they would determine this upper limit and a lower limit? So here, suppose this wheat is being exchanged with this linen. Okay, so this has opted complete specialization of wheat. This has opted complete specialization of linen. But there could be any circumstance. Okay, like if this country is offering wheat, but this country stop, importing wheat from this country. And what is that situation? When this situation would occur, then the international trade for the wheat will not happen. The same case may happen with the linen also. So for that, they are determining the upper limit that 20 units of wheat is being produced in America, okay, and 10 units of wheat is produced in Germany. So I'll take the ratio of these two. So this is giving you 20 is to 10, okay, or I say this is 2 is to 1. So what does it mean? This upper limit is 2 is to 1. This indicates that the America is paying the wages per unit, okay, the per unit wages or the 10 days labor you required. So per day labor it is dollar 1.5. So it should not exceed that the upper limit what we got here, that is dollar 2. So 2 is to 1 because 20 is to 10 we are following here, that is the exchange rate, okay, and this exchange rate does not allow this wages to go beyond to this limit. So 20 is to 10 we are following only within this way. Now why this is very important, let's say if the wages are getting fluctuated, because once they are participating in international trade, there could be a fluctuation in the demand you could see within the economy. And then what happens? The demand of, suppose, because they are exporting this wheat. Now, because of exports are taking place, the domestic market, their own consumption would now be shuffled. So it is now available less. If it is available less, so probably the production cost of wheat may go high. So daily wages in dollars, because there is an international market, we have also demand of wheat. So this dollar 1.5 may go up and may reach at dollar 2. Now see, if it is now equals to dollar 2, then what happens? This dollar 2, if this is dollar 2, then for 10 days labor, this will now become 20. Okay. And if this is 20 now, then 20, if you both cancel, then it is giving you instead 0.75. Now it is 1. So this one would now be equals to this one. So there will be no meaning to do trade. Okay. So cost of this production of wheat, opportunity cost, I would say, per unit of producing this wheat is now getting similar in both of the countries, America and Germany. So there is no use for Germany to import this commodity now in the international trade from the America. So they'll stop importing, okay, and their exports would also stop. Whose exports? America's exports would also stop. So what happens here? Now wages are with respect to this it is rising, but because their exports are stopped and still their imports for the linen is continuous. Let me see, somebody is requesting for something. Okay, so America's exports would stop, but their imports are continue. Okay, so relatively their imports are higher than the exports. So this is giving you current account deficit. Now, because of current account deficit, the country will now be facing a divergence in their BOP, and because of that, the gold, which is their only asset, will flow from this country to this country. So now Germany is a surplus country because their exports are not stopped. So their current account is in the favorable situation. So from America, which is now a deficit country, to Germany, the gold will have an outflow. Is that clear to everyone? This upper limit part? I would repeat that 20 units to 10 you're talking. Okay. So 2 is to 1. This is a limit. Fine. So if the wages are getting fluctuated because of a more demand of wheat, then it is converted. Let's say that is dollar 2, which you do not allow because this is your upper limit. Fine. So if it is becoming dollar 2, then for 10 days labor would be converting as 20, and this gives you opportunity cost that is equals to 1. So this one now be equals to this Germany's cost. So Germany would stop importing it. So it means relative, the exports are increasing here, but the relative imports are increasing here. So in that case, America would face deficit BOP and this face surplus BOP. So the gold will flow from America to Germany. So this thing first happened. But as there will be more capital, fine, because more gold is now coming up to this country. Now Germany would have more capital, and at the same time Germany is producing this wheat. Fine, because they are not importing this wheat from this country, America. So now Germany has started this production. So the demand of wheat now increasing, or the production cost would increase. So this will also now increase from one. So if it is increasing from one, then Germany again stop, producing this and will start importing from this. So this process would continue, and again from Germany to America, this gold will have an outflow. So this way, automatic adjustments later on of this international trade or the monetary wages would, give you another equilibrium position. So that was about, the upper limit. But how do you go with the lower limit? For lower limit, I'll come with this 20 units of linen. And then we have here with the Germany that 15 units of linen. So 20 and 15, you'll be comparing again. Okay, so this is giving you 4:3 ratio, or I would say this is 1:1.33. Okay, so if you get this ratio, 15 units to 20 units, so this gives you 1 is to 1.33. Fine. So it means my lower limit is $1.33. Now, why this is so? It means in America, if the linen price would reduce, okay, or we say this is now reducing 1.33, or it is reducing from this, then what happens for 10 days? You are actually will be charging $13. And if it is $13, then 0.66 would now be greater than the 0.65 which you will be getting here. Okay, so it means America will stop trading with this Germany, and in that case, gold will have an outflow from Germany to America. And the same way, America would start producing it, and gradually the demand of production would increase, the wages would rise, and automatically the balance of payment, disequilibria will get restored. Yes, guys, I'm coming to your window for more discussion. Okay, yes. Is there anything which you didn't get it? Yeah, students. Screen is not visible. Archana is saying, whether is this the case for everyone? I'm asking to all, whether this is the case for everyone. That screen is not visible. Okay, so everybody has gone through the lecture, na? So Archana, you need to check your system. Some error is coming into your system only. Okay, so this happens. That's not a big problem. Yes, you can ask me the question in this regard, because once you will understand this, then only I think the other refinements you can understand. This is the role of money. Professor Tosing has talked about it, and the role of money is giving you what is the calculation of this opportunity cost, and from this actually you are determining the upper limit and a lower limit. Now this upper limit and a lower limit, that is Dawsing's analysis, which is realistic, but what and how we do it on the basis of exchange rate, and the central bank is following this fundamentals for open market operations to control the this fluctuations more which is coming from the other countries. So it means whenever it is needed, you are extending the reserve, and whenever it is needed, you are taking the reserves back to the bank, and that is giving a control to to float more freely to this exchange rate. So same way, we are balancing the situation. So some of the countries like USA, and we talk about China, they are following more rigid pattern into it. Okay, our country is more tend towards the flexible part, so we do follow the market mechanism, so we control it through the market mechanism, though Reserve Bank is also making an operations into it. So it is, you can call it some semi fixed the operations, but some of the countries are following it very effective way. So that is a realistic approach, of course, but that time, because of the government interference, they were not allowing, so they have explained, the Professor Tosing is explained in this way. Is that clear to you, or you want to ask some questions on it?